Hello and welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. As always, I am your co-saint, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about Thor Ragnarok.
So, spoiler alert, if you are like us and still hadn't seen it, 4 months after its release?
Hey, you know what? We have a child.
Well, yes, and so that I'm not blaming us. I'm just saying if you're like us and you haven't seen it yet, spoiler alerts.
Yes.
With that being said, let's jump into our review and summary.
Yeah.
My brief summary is Thor returns from his long travels away from trying to figure out what was going to befall Asgard from his vision in Age of Ultron. And if you don't remember Age of Ultron, I don't blame you because it was not one of the best Marvel cinematic movies.
The trailer was awesome.
Yeah, this trailer was awesome, but anyway. Thor has a vision in some weird pool and then disappears after the battle with the Ultrons. And shows up again in the post-credit scene for Doctor Strange. That whole scene is actually in the movie. So, he... this is way too long of a summary. And I haven't even done anything yet. So, he returns from his travels and then finds out that Ragnarok was inside him all along.
And we thought I was really bad at summaries.
That was a bad summary.
It's okay. It's all right. I'll try to redeem us. Okay, we'll see what happens. All right. So, Thor is searching out how to stop his vision from happening. In the course of that, his father passes away, and his sister, who knew, comes back and threatens to destroy Asgard. In the process of that, Thor gets swept away to another planet, hooks up with the Hulk, and then they go back to Asgard and they save the day.
Okay.
Right?
Sure. My review is that it was a lot of fun. We did kind of have to pause in between moments. We did pause in the middle of it to record our podcast last week, and doing other random chores around the house and stuff like that.
Being adults.
But it was rather fun. It was a good comedic movie, and I think it was a much lighter tone for the Thor movies that it really needed to take. That I think that the first two Thor movies were highly lacking. The first one was just, it tried to put it in there, but it was just not working, in my opinion.
The first one for me was more like, we got to throw together a storyline about Thor before we throw him into the Avengers.
Exactly. We need to figure out who this guy is before he shows up in the Avengers. Then Thor, the Dark World, is that what it was called? It was good, but it didn't feel like there was a whole lot of humor in it.
No, it was definitely better than the first.
Yeah. It was better than the first, but it seemed dark.
Uh-huh.
So, which, on one hand, it was good. On another, I think Thor needed a little bit lightheartedness because it was more otherworldly things that, seem like magic to us mere mortals.
Yeah.
So, this movie actually didn't take itself too seriously, which was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe Marvel has figured out that humor and hero movies do coincide and exist really well. I mean, we saw that in, Ant-Man is humorous, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy is really humorous. So,
well, I think that Ant-Man really was Edgar Wright's original movie. It just... they needed to shoehorn in some of the MCU stuff, which is probably why he clashed with, I'm guessing, Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame Kevin Feige for that.
But it was still a funnier movie, is what I'm...
Yeah.
It's definitely not a Captain America.
No. The Russo brothers are able to put in humor into their movies. So, I mean, we did see some of that in some of the Captain America movies. But, let's see, which other one were responsible for? No, Civil War was Avengers 2.5, but it was still a Captain America movie, so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, now that we've talked about all of the other Marvel movies, let's
So your
focus in.
review?
Yes, my review. I really did enjoy it. It did kind of throw me off a little bit. Like, I knew it was supposed to be, I knew ahead of time, of course, that it was going to be more comedic. And I did enjoy it, but I also think that they've definitely taken advantage of the fact that 80s nostalgia is really big right now. And so...
Well, it kind of has its ebbs and flows. Ever since, the early aughts did have that, the 80s kind of had its ebbs and flows into pop culture again.
But I mean, like with Stranger Things, like it definitely stole some color schemes from certain 80s movies that we have seen recently. So that's what I'm...
Yeah.
I mean, it was good, and I enjoyed it. I'll rewatch it again, but it wasn't as original.
Yeah, we really need to get on to our Marvel movie marathon before Avengers Infinity War comes out.
Yes.
A week earlier now.
Woohoo! Which never happens.
Well, I guess the Russo brothers were just done with the movie early, and they were like, okay, we can release it a week earlier. So let's jump into our conversation about this movie. First off, I just wanted to say I really felt like the movie was National Lampoon's Vacation in Space.
Why do you say that?
Well, it really, I think a lot of the themes that are present in Vacation, in that you can't really plan for a good family vacation, or well, that's the theme in Vacation, but you can't really plan for things. That things really just things happen, and you can't really plan for them. And you see this throughout the entire movie, that Thor is kind of he's planning on preventing his vision from happening, which is why he ends up in the chains at the beginning of the movie, why he ends up battling what's his face and taking his crown, which is also his skull, I guess.
Yeah, that was kind of strange.
To prevent Ragnarok from happening, but in a sense, he's the one that brings it about anyway. That it was inside of him all along. the good family vacation was inside of him all along. Ragnarok.
Yes.
But that. All of his good plans for these things, that it all really kind of fell apart. Mm-hmm. And I think this is harkens back a lot to National Lampoon's vacation movies, in that for Clark W. Griswold, it never works out.
Yeah.
And I think that it really played with that very well, in putting into the themes that the comics that he pulled from. To make this movie, I think he did a really great job of doing that. And I think after the subversion of expectations that was set by, I keep wanting to say Tim Gunn, but that's not his name, because Tim Gunn is the guy from TV that does designing things. It's not the guy who directed Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyway, his subversion of themes that he started there was starting to tell stories in a newer and more humorous way, was that it doesn't have to take itself way too seriously. And I think that you saw this come to fruition, like we talked about in The Last Jedi.
Yep. Was
that Rian Johnson also did that in his movie, is that, our storytelling methods are done. They're old. We need a new way of telling stories, that it's not all of that glitz and glamour, that not everything is going to end up being legendary and stuff like this. And you did have those legendary and epic moments in this, with Thor gaining the lightning powers that were inside of him all along. and all of these other things that kind of happened throughout the movie, but it didn't take itself too seriously with that.
Yeah.
Especially with Jeff Goldblum throughout the entire movie, just making fun of himself for being Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
And so, I think this was a fantastic way to show that all of our plans, they really don't come to fruition. That we need to,
and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay. And that you got to really roll with the punches when it comes to things in life. I think this really comes down to that proverb that people take way out of context and ends up being, that whole thing why you should never take pride in anything that you do, especially within evangelical Christian circles, which is that pride goes before the fall. And really, in essence, I think this is in a sense of saying, don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
When you read the scriptures and stuff like this, it's saying don't take yourself too seriously, don't take life too seriously, because crap happens in life.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen in life. And you have, in a sense, those people who say throughout aeons of history and everything else, saying that, oh, God meant this for good, or God meant this to happen, or whatever. And it really puts that big thing on it, is that when bad things happen, does this mean that God meant for those bad things to happen? Does suffering have meaning? Well,
and I just wanted to bring up too, like in the movie, like Thor, like realized like it's okay if Asgard gets destroyed because I saved the people. Well, and that was the most important part of it.
And that's at the very end there. But I mean, throughout his entire movie, you see him kind of struggling with, why is this happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is this happening to me? What's going on? I need to get back there. I need to do what I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. I need to be going through with my plans. And I think this is, a very undercurrent of the, here I am trying to make more out of National Lampoon's Vacation movies, but that the undercurrent of the National Lampoon's Vacation movies is that, it doesn't matter because stuff is going to happen. Bad stuff is going to happen. And you shouldn't take life too seriously because bad stuff's going to happen. You just got to roll with the punches. I think that's, an essential lesson that Thor learns throughout the entire movie, especially, when it comes to Doug, who, wasn't very good at defeating the champion, because now he's dead, Doug.
Yeah.
Poor Doug.
It's okay.
That everybody's expectations kind of were subverted. And I think this is very true with, we really should have written down the character names, but the Rock guys thing was that, I was going to start a revolution, but I didn't print enough pamphlets. That's another thing, is that, your planning doesn't really, it can only do so much. Mm-hmm. And that things happen in life. And it's going to happen. And we really shouldn't take life too seriously. That, pride is all well and good, and, you should understand what you do well at, but ultimately you shouldn't take yourself too seriously because, sometimes there are going to be people who are better at things than you are. Mm-hmm. And it's okay.
Yep.
And it really comes down to, at the end there, is where he realizes that he needs to clean up his own mess. That this is his family's mess. This is something that, he created with his plans and everything else, that he just, had he come back earlier, he would have discovered that Odin was not there. Yeah. That Loki was in his place, and having Matt Damon play out roles for him. And I just want to know how Matt Damon got to Asgard. So
I don't know. Yep. Loki, obviously.
Obviously. And, that he realizes it's his mess. Mm-hmm. That even though, Odin did all these other things and locked Hela away and all this other stuff, that it's now his mess. That Odin's gone. Now Thor's responsible to clean it up because Loki's not going to.
Well, no. And Thor has been training since he was, younger, that he was going to be the person that would be the next in line for the throne. And so now he knows, I am now responsible for my people. I am now responsible to make sure that Asgard is safe. And I think we also learned, too, that it's not a building that makes a home. It's the people inside of it. Because that's right. Because he was like, oh, no, this is Asgard. And he points to the people. So
Asgard was inside of him all along.
as well as Ragnarok.
And the electric powers.
So many things were inside of Thor all along.
very true.
Sorry, continue. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That that's all I was going to say was that he needed to clean up his own mess at the end, and that's something that you never saw in the vacation movies. Was that Clark W. Griswold just kind of left the mess as it was, and that's how the movie ended. Mm-hmm. And he never really cleaned up the mess. And I could imagine after Christmas Vacation, we did talk about that, by the way, this past year. That at Christmas, the end of Christmas Vacation, his house was I don't know how it was still standing at the end of the movie.
No, and his neighbor's house too.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I can only imagine what they had to go through to clean up that mess.
But they did get a pool in the end.
Yes. Maybe.
I
think that bonus went to cleaning up everything.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a little bit more serious on some stuff because I feel like that this is something important to talk about, and it's definitely coming more into our daily lives in terms of our climate as a country as in the United States of America where we are in. And that is we got to stop hiding the bad things that happened in the past. We do. We got to stop it. So Odin, great guy, great leader.
Anthony Hopkins, great actor.
Yeah, he made some mistakes. And he needed to tell the truth about what happened way before 5 minutes before he died. Right?
Oh, I know. It's kind of oh yeah, hi guys. By the way, this lady's going to show up. She's your sister. She's going to destroy everything.
Mm-hmm. See you later. Good luck.
I'm going to die now.
Okay, goodbye. So, yeah, and this could have been handled way differently, but it's what you were talking about with Pride. I think what was going on was that he was too ashamed of what he did in the past, that he had too much pride in maintaining his persona that he couldn't tell, he was afraid to tell people what actually happened in the past.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want people to think differently of him, which obviously Thor does. He's shocked that his dad would do such a thing. I would be too. Loki, on the other hand, is not so shocked because
Loki's Loki.
And part of the problem with him not actually telling the full details of the past, other than the fact that he just kind of sprang it on them and said, good luck, bye, is no one knows how to handle Hela. She just shows up and everybody's like, who are you? We don't know how strong you are. We don't know your powers. We don't know anything about you. And it just kind of spirals out of control from there. Hello, she destroys Thor's hammer. At the very, very beginning of the movie, he doesn't have it any longer.
Well, it did show her in one of the flashback scenes as having the hammer, as having Mjolnir, which I don't think is part of Norse mythology, but that's besides the point.
Yeah,
we're going off Marvel Comics, not Norse mythology.
Yeah. But it's not just Thor that doesn't know anything about Hela. Also, the people in Asgard, they have no idea who she is. She just shows up and she's like, oh yeah, I'm the one that, started, helped my father start this whole, kingdom. And then he shut me away because I wanted more power and he was good with what he had. And so it was a surprise to everybody except for, I can't remember.
Heimdall.
Yes. He was the only, but.
Idris Elba. You can just.
Yeah. But he had the only sense of no, we can't fight her. We just got to hide. We got to just, hide everybody as much as we can. We got to get out of here. Let her have this. Let her have the city, whatever. Let's just go. He was the only one that knew that she was too powerful to stop. Mm-hmm. Heck, they had to release an actual hell demon to destroy her. So I don't know.
His name starts with an S, I think. But we needed to write down the character names
That's
again.
okay. That's usually my job, and I failed. I'm sorry, everybody. But how this comes into play to our real life, real world consequences, gosh, it's, for example, those people who don't believe the Holocaust happened. That just, one, that sickens me. two, that just drives me insane. I'm like, how, like, do you think that, like, all of these people just kind of made up this story and just kind of, like, went along with it? Like, how is that possible? I mean, people on both sides, like, knew it happened and talked about how it happened. But, I mean, people believe, like, have an honest belief that it didn't happen. It is some kind of conspiracy.
Well, and this is something that I know that we're probably going to be talking about more next week. But, I mean, this is like with the Confederate statues being taken down and Confederate flags, is that, oh, we're not going to remember our history. You don't go to Germany and see, statues of Hitler. Yeah. Still. And, they still teach what happened in their history classes in Germany. Mm-hmm. And, they teach it as something that they were responsible for, is that their German heritage was responsible for these horrid acts, and that, they don't dwell on it. They don't oh yeah, this was a great, glorious time for our country.
No. In fact, I know a lot of people who actually are from Germany or have family who it's directly from Germany. So their mom and dad are from Germany, and they'll tell you no, we are still ashamed about that. It's a deep hurt in our country still that we are trying to still heal and make better for the wrongs that we did. Mm-hmm. And I have to give them kudos for that, because there are so many people in the United States, because of the Civil War, still can't wrap their head around the fact that they were on the wrong side and the reason why they are on the wrong side. I was actually reading an article, and actually was able to find some stuff to back this up as well, that many people in the United States don't know the real reason for the Civil War. A lot of times it's just oh yeah, well, the South was fighting for state rights, period. No more details besides that. It was just about state rights, period. What they forget or aren't willing to bring up is the hard truth that the state rights that many of the states were wanting to fight for was the right to keep slavery around. Mm-hmm. There's actual documents that you can read from the states that were written at that time that specifically says, we want to keep the right to have slaves because it's part of our economy. It'll destroy our economy if we don't have it. It's there. You can find the documents. It's
well, and it's still the same arguments in favor for, which this is horrible, but it's in favor for illegal immigration, because illegal immigrants get paid under the table way less than normal everyday legal immigrant workers, because legal immigrant workers have rights to a minimum wage and a fair wage, a living wage, which we don't have living wage in this country as minimum wage. Just be honest with ourselves. And this is something that, is brought up with the whole idea of immigrants here at the end of the movie. Is they're going to be immigrants now on Earth as guardians, and I don't know how Earth is going to handle that, especially Norway, because that's where they're going to end up apparently. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that, well, I don't know, there wasn't too, if everybody can fit on a ship, I'm sure we can find a spot for them. But
well, it's a pretty big ship according to the rock guy.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's going to be something that we may be seeing in the next movies, how the world handles having these aliens just kind of try to take refuge. I mean, we have such a hard time with that as it is with our own Earthlings already on Earth. How are we going to handle it when aliens come over and try to seek refuge?
Well, yeah, and considering that we have 7 billion of us now, which I think we're, as human beings, we're kind of way overpopulated in a way. Mm-hmm. But, we've got to find a way of making sure that we don't deplete our resources as it is.
Yeah, but, I mean, they're going to be coming with special skills. I mean, this is obviously not in real world talk, but
the ramifications of Thor Ragnarok on real world politics. Yeah.
But the people from Asgard are going to be bringing the skills that they had in Asgard. And so I think that's, in the end, it'll be fine, because they can do stuff and they have different types of skills and know how to do different things than we can on Earth, as Earthlings.
Depending on when they arrive and what happens in Infinity War Part 1, because we see Thor in those trailers without the eye and with in space as well. So he's with the Guardians, and so.
Yep. But anyway.
And the Asgardians.
And the Asgardians. Yep. So what I'm really trying to boil down to is when we either minimize the atrocities that happened in the past, or if we just flat out deny the atrocities that have happened, that ends up causing way more hurt and way more pain and suffering than if we were to be open and honest about what happened, about really what happened. Because when people who deny the Holocaust go up to Holocaust survivors, which there are obviously, we're nearing the point in time where there's not too many left, obviously, because, time has gone by. But if they go up to those people who actually survived the concentration camps and say, nope, it didn't happen, you didn't really experience that, you are lying, that, oh gosh, it just blows my mind that you could just do that. Mm-hmm. It does. And same with slavery too. I mean, there's still people who have who are alive today whose parents were slaves and whose grandparents were slaves. And it just I'm just sorry. I'm going off on a whole other thing, but my point is if you bury those bad things that happened, it's not a good thing no matter what. You can try to ignore it, but ignoring it is not going to make it go away.
So
hell is going to come anyway.
Hell is going to show up.
Hell is just going to show up.
Without the A.
Yes.
So what principles can we pull from the parable of Thor Ragnarok? I would definitely say that this really comes into play a little bit more in what we'll be talking about next week, but is a responsibility to your community. Mm-hmm. And I think that Thor really realized that his responsibility was to Asgard, was to the Asgardians. Even while his father was alive, he still was responsible to those people rather than, gallivanting across the universe, trying to stop whatever it was from happening. Or gallivanting to Earth and fighting Ultron robots that he inevitably sort of caused because it was Loki's scepter that had the Mind Stone, which now is in Vision, which will be torn out of Vision's head. Because we saw in the trailer.
Yeah, I like Vision. You just made me sad a little bit.
It's all right. He's not dead yet. He got better.
He got better.
He feels happy. And I think it's also about being honest with what we've done, being honest about our past. And it's part of that pride thing is that we can't take ourselves too seriously to the point where we think that even hiding what we did in the past is going to, make a difference. And I think really when we're honest with each other, when we're honest with who we were and what we did, that we can move past it. We can then begin to see a bit of redemption. Mm-hmm. As we talked about last week with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, is that redemption comes through honesty. It comes through being open and honest with what your problems were, with what your plans were, and how you really ultimately failed at your plans.
Yeah.
And bringing it back around again to, clean up your mess.
Yep.
Is be responsible for what you're doing and clean up your mess. And I think this is something that our country can really take to heart right now, especially after the wake of yet another school shooting this week. Mm-hmm. Is that we don't realize that we're the ones feeding into this. We want to blame everybody else, but we don't really take responsibility for our own actions. We don't take responsibility for the fact that we have fetishized violence. That, yes, we see it in our mirrors and everything else like that. We can point the fingers all day long at Hollywood, but we're the ones that are consuming it.
Yep.
We're the ones that are going out and buying weapons. We're the ones that are going out and doing these things. It's on you. It's not on somebody else. And I think this is the problem when we start to blame the mirrors for when we see something ugly.
Yep.
And this is, you can't blame a mirror for what it shows you because the mirrors don't lie.
Well, and as a human species, like, we have always been drawn towards violence. I mean, when it came to public executions, I mean, it was a whole big family affair. Like, people would, pack picnics and all kinds of stuff to watch somebody die. Gladiators, for example. Like, again, you were watching people and animals die. So it's not a new thing. Yeah,
and you see this with the executioner in the movie, was that he didn't want to kill an innocent. And Hela was going to make him kill an innocent, and he's like, I don't want to do this. And, that's what leads to his last stand with his AR-15s that were modified, that he found in Texas. So this is something that, I think that the director does make a very sly kind of mention about this in the movie. And I think this is something that I'm getting at with this whole not taking yourself too seriously and this whole telling new stories thing, is that these are mirrors to our own society. These are mirrors to who we are, and we're the ones that are supposed to take that and see what we can do with it. That's why we do this podcast, is we try to take principles from the parables, from our modern parables. And that's all parables are. They're mirrors. They're mirrors to ourselves, to our lives, to what we can pull from them.
Yep.
And I think that blaming the mirror for what you see in the mirror is not helpful.
No, the only mirror that you can blame for what you see in the mirror is like those the mirrors at the carnival.
Yeah, the funhouse mirrors.
Yeah, the funhouse mirrors. That's it.
Well, and I think that even then they exaggerate something.
Yeah.
They exaggerate something about you, and they're meant to show you something. And so in that sense, it's not really
the mirror's fault.
The mirror's fault. And I think that's the problem with blaming video games. That's the problem with blaming media. That's the problem with blaming the news media. It's a problem with blaming anything else other than your own actions. Taking responsibility for what you're doing, for what you're saying, and, for making your excuses that, oh, this is to protect my family. Oh, when are you going to protect your family with an AR-15? Are you kidding me? Like, seriously, be honest with yourself. If somebody broke into your house with a gun, you would probably be shitting the bed. And I'm probably going to have to put an
It's not my fault this time.
Yeah, but... Like, seriously, be honest with yourself. Like, when it comes down to it, that's not who you are. And it's for your own entertainment. I mean, if you're going to be honest with yourself, completely honest with yourself, yeah, guns are fun. It's fun to shoot guns. But, in the proper time and place, in the proper time and setting. And this is something that I think it's a very subtle thing in the movie. But I think Thor realizes that, well, the electrical powers are inside of him all along, but that electricity in its own time and place is useful. When it's, being used to shock him, it's not useful.
Yeah, I just...
Sorry, this is something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to be constantly talking about it, I'm sure.
Well,
so,
and
until we actually do something.
Well, and I do have to say, like, because you mentioned, people taking responsible for their own actions for, how they caused, bad things to happen. And we're seeing that with a lot of companies now. Like, there's been a wave of companies who are either taking, like, certain types of guns off the shelf, or they have they've increased, like, their purchasing age, which I don't know if that's going to do much for shootings in general, but... I mean, to start, at least they're saying, hey, you know what? We do need to make a change. And obviously, Congress isn't going to do anything about it. So we, as a company, have to do something.
And if you're one of our listeners and, you know that we don't do advertising for things because we don't people don't support us yet, but
We don't have enough listeners is what it is.
yeah, go out and find those companies, support them with your money, show them that you do appreciate what they're saying, what they're doing with this, like Delta and Dick's Sporting Goods. I mean, I need a new pair of tennis shoes. I need to buy them from Dick's Sporting Goods. So,
yep, and if you have even a local shop who's changing their rules as well too. Obviously, they're not going to get as much media coverage as the larger places, but even better because I'm all a big fan of supporting your local community.
Well, like I said, you're responsible for your own community. Like Thor realized, Asgard was inside of him all along.
Asgard is not the buildings; it's the people.
Well. And this is something that we'll talk about more next week, and obviously because that was kind of the whole theme of the movie that we're going to be talking about next week.
Yeah.
And so I think those are the principles that we can take from this parable of Thor Ragnarok. So let's wrap it up now. Let's see, our feedback schedule, the things that we're going to be talking about here coming up. We've got next week, we're going to be talking about Black Panther. We did actually get to go see it last night.
Yes.
It was good. We will be talking about in 2 weeks, Jessica Jones, season 2. I know that I put in Black Mirror there last week, but that was a placeholder until we could find something else. And then hopefully in 3 weeks, we'll talk about A Wrinkle in Time. We're going to try to see if our son can handle sitting through a 2-hour movie at the theater, which it may or may not work.
If we go in the afternoon outside of nap time,
yeah,
it might work.
It might work. So we'll see. So you can come find us if you have anything to say about those or about any of the other episodes that we have done, or just want to talk to us about anything. We've got a group on Facebook. Which is Patron Saints of Pop Culture. You can text us or call us and leave a voicemail at 720-372-3879. You can also find us on Twitter and Reddit and Tumblr and YouTube. Come find us. TheHonestFaith.com is our website.
Yes.
And, of course, you're listening to us right now on one of your favorite podcast media formats, whatever that may be. Maybe Stitcher, maybe TuneIn, it might be iHeartRadio. Whatever it may be, I encourage you to leave us a response or a, what do you call it? Review.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just blanked on that word. But leave us a review. Give us whatever, 5 stars, 2 stars, whatever you think that we have deserved thus far. We don't take ourselves too seriously on that yet because we've only been doing this for a year. And so we do enjoy doing it. We do enjoy talking about this stuff with you guys. And we would love for you to be a part of that conversation. So please leave us a comment or a review. And if you do it on Apple, that would be great too because that gets us more visibility and gets us more responses.
Yep. Sorry, I was just checking to see when Tripod Month is coming up because during Tripod Month, we encourage those of you who do listen to...
Oh, that's right. Isn't it March?
That's what I thought. I was just looking it up and I didn't see anything, but they did do it last year. We'll have to take a look and see exactly what it is. If it's not this month, maybe next month, we'll let you guys know. But with Tripod Month, that is... a time when we encourage people who listen to podcasts on a regular basis to openly share the podcast that they listen to others. Just from my experience, when I tell people what, I do with Miguel on the weekends, people look at me like, what? You are a what? I'm like, a podcaster. What's that? So
it's like a radio show on the internet. So
a lot of people don't know what podcasts are. So, take a moment, just do a shout out to, on Facebook, on Twitter, or even just your friend, at work, if they are interested in this kind of stuff, share us with them.
Yeah. What you can take away from Thor Ragnarok.
Yes.
Share it with your local youth pastor because this is kind of what I did as a youth pastor was to find principles in modern parables. And so that's kind of what gave me the idea to do the podcast to begin with. And so, that might be a good person for you to share this with. They may find something that they're able to talk to teenagers about.
Yeah.
So that would be great too. Also, speaking of supporting things, you can find us on Patreon as well, and you can support us on there. We do have a Patreon exclusive Let's Play. We're playing through Divinity Original Sin at the moment. We will be eventually be uploading some videos about us playing Sims 4 here shortly, and I think we may even start today with that, so we'll see. But those will be on Patreon. And so with all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.